Diamond P Sports presents the American Sports Cavalcade. A panorama of speed, color, drama, and excitement. The American Sports Cavalcade.
On a superb spring-like day in Richmond County, North Carolina, no one could possibly stay indoors. You've just got to get out and soak up the splendor of the azaleas and the dogwoods, a landscape colored as only Mother Nature can. We, too, today set out in search of blossoms, the ones that spell out Winston Invitational. Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Evans, and welcome to Rockingham International Dragway. Now, this is only the second running of this event, but already it has become one of the most popular on this circuit for NHRA Championship drag racers for a couple of reasons. One has to be the beauty and hospitality of the region. The other has to be money. Buckets and buckets full of hard cash, one of the richest purses these competitors race for. Now, to tell us a little bit more about the purse and to visit with one of the top funny car teams, here's my buddy, Paul Page.
Well, Steve, with engines warming up and down the line and final preparations being made now on John Force's funny car for this very special race, the Winston Invitational. 8-car fields and the top cars in the sport, literally the best of the best. And we're talking big money here, too. $300,000 purse. You can get $10,000 just for being the top qualifier. So, Austin Coyle, John Force's crew chief, what do you have to do to win this thing?
Biggest thing one's got to do here, the way this track is to not smoke the tires 150 feet off the starting line. But I believe that we have a handle on the clutch operation enough to get through that spot and still leave the power in the motor that we need to win.
And you're hoping for a win for Force?
I feel pretty sure about it myself.
All right, Coyle and the crew are ready to go. Now, what about the technical side? Let's get an update there from Don Garlitz.
Well, Paul, it's a good thing that Austin Coyle has the clutch worked out in John Force's funny car, because that seems to be the key here at Rockingham, where it has always been traditionally slick due to the fact that this whole facility is surrounded by sand hills that gets on the track, causing it to be slick. The teams come here, they automatically set the clutches loose to compensate for this loss of traction. But Darrell Gwynn yesterday just completely confused everyone when he blistered the track with a 494, became the #1 qualifier in top fuel, and in the process picked up $10,000. So you take the heavy air, the funny track conditions, and it becomes a problem of setting the clutch correctly. Right now it's time for first round top fuel action. Paul?
And there's Lori Johns as she's set to go in her top fuel dragster. The Pro Stock category here at Rockingham was so popular that there were 16 cars ready to go for first round.
And that first round of Pro Stock was accomplished earlier today. This is, however, round number 1 of the kings of the sport, the 4,000 horsepower top fuel dragsters. And what a nice surprise Jim Head has been here, not only to the fans and us broadcasters, but to himself. His quickest ever ride on a top fuel car at 5:06. He has got his problem sorted out with a very unique race car.
So Jim Head, who has the choice of lanes here in round 1 of top fuel, will face Lori Johns. Lori Johns, you'll remember, was the winner of the Winter Nationals at Pomona, California. She comes out of Corpus Christi, Texas, and her chief is Larry Meyer. They've together qualified this car number 5 with a 5:09.
And Jim Head out of Columbus, Ohio, a graduate engineer. As we mentioned, it's a very new car. It is crewed by this man, John Davis, and earlier I had a chance to take a good close look. No one in top fuel has a race car as narrow as Jim Head's. It's more like an arrow than a car. And Jim doesn't sit in it, he wears it. He can't move anything but his hands, and that's the way he says it ought to be. He feels that this is the safest race car out here. It was designed after studying dozens of crashes, not in drag racing, but in sprint cars. Now take a look at how high the top rail is there. It's right at the top of his shoulder, not down somewhere near the middle of his arm like an awful lot of cars. What they discovered after analyzing all those crashes was the driver who fit the best and the tightest in the car had the best chance of surviving without any injury. Something else Jim has done. He's gone back to the tall dragster front wheels. The little guys, they were originally developed by Don Garlitz when you wanted to streamline the front end. They're not doing that anymore. So these stage better, and you can see them when the front end comes up much better. You're aware of the wheel stand quicker with these than you are with the small front wheel. I think this will be a wave that sweeps through the entire ranks in the category.
I'd like to also comment on those wheels in that I think there's one more thing they do. When the car is light on the front end, they tend to act as airfoils in the front and give you a little more steering ability.
So all in all, you're saying forget those little wheels you invented?
That's right, Steve.
All right, here we go. It is this lady, Lori John, and that man, Jim Head. They qualified only 3/100ths of a second apart in anybody's drag race until Lori John smoked the tires. Jim Head, oh my, another career best thrills his crew, 5.02, 273 miles per hour. Let's go to Don on the starting line.
5:02, beautiful.
All the good luck we've had in the past, I think we're paid up in this kind of race.
Tell you what, if you have the kind of good luck he claims to have had in the past, you don't need any luck at all. But maybe luck is finally coming around for that operation. On the starting line, it's Don Prudhomme, making the transition this year over from the funny cars into Top Fuel and still looking for his first win. And he will take on the snowman, Gene Snow.
You know, the Snake has really had a hard time with that transition to Top Fuel, and I think one of the reasons for that was they also took the electronics off the car for 1990, and it's been a very difficult situation with no electronics and a Top Fuel dragster. Two things together are tough to deal with sometimes.
And make it really require that the driver drive that car all the way to the end. Now let's go to the far end and Steve.
Jim Head out of the car, your quickest run ever, 5:02.
Feels great.
Everybody's surprised a little bit with the quality of this racetrack, the surface of it.
Not me, not me. I've been racing here since 1979, and you know, in the early 80s, this racetrack was second only to Indianapolis before the advent of the super tracks.
You had to drive the car. It got pretty close to the wall.
It was skating around a lot, and I'm not real sure what's going on. We're trying some new ground effects things on the car, and we thought maybe this would be the right racetrack to debut these types of things because we're trying to stick it to the ground, but it was definitely loose.
Good to have you back down here in an interview posture.
It's been a while, hasn't it, Steve?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, it's a car that he's been dreaming about for a long time, and obviously there is a lot of innovation on that machine. A car that also has a great deal of research behind it. Don Prudhomme being backed into position and ready to take on Gene Snow. The only one that has benefited from Don Prudhomme's switch to Top Fuel is Keith Black, the man who builds the engines, the crankshafts, the cylinder heads that Prudhomme has blown up. There's a giant stack of them out in California. His crew chief trying to figure all of that out, along with the snake himself, is Mike Colbert. Qualified, though, at an encouraging 5.10 second elapsed time. Gene Snow, Fort Worth, Texas, the man who really pioneered the high gear, multi-stage clutch setup that the guys are using these days, and a fine young crew chief, a former funny car racer himself, Brad Tuttle, Hesperia, California. Gene Snow was incredibly quick a number of times last year. He looks like he has a great season ahead here in 1990 as we continue with the first round of Top Fuel. Prudhomme to the near side, Gene Snow to the far side. As there's a flash on the back of Snow's car, Prudhomme has his problems trying to get it running. Snow is totally stopped back at the starting line. Prudhomme shuts it down and will coast across. The numbers won't even matter as Gene Snow climbs out.
And that coast, as you called it, Paul, it looked like a snail's pace. The speed was 80 miles an hour on Prudhomme with just that little shot of the pedal. Now watch the far lane. Great big flash of fire right there, and the car was instantly disabled. Let's go down to Don Garlitz.
What was that, Gene? A mercy killing?
I guess it was. We were all prepared to run plenty good, and that thing did that. I have no idea what it was yet. The blower's still on the car, and we don't know.
It might have hydraulic. I saw a little flash of fire.
Well, maybe that's what it was. I couldn't tell, of course, from in there. We'll find out.
You can bet they will. They'll take that thing apart and examine it totally. Let's go down to the far end now. Steve is with Don Prudhomme.
Well, Don, that was just a case of one driver having more problems than the other, and fortunately for you, you had the least.
Yeah, it's the way it looks. Take it any way we can get it, I guess. Yeah, mine was way too stout and just blew the tires off it. And saw Lori John goes down through there, and she blew the tires off.
The air is so good, it's like having another supercharger.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Plus, we hopped it up on top of it, so we're just going to have to go back and pull some power out of it.
Okay, see you next round.
So Don Perdome goes away to prepare for the semifinal round in Top Fuel. In the meantime, back in the pit area, Jerry Ekman is ready to run. He was the low qualifier in Pro Stock and will face Warren Johnson. We'll be back with more right after this.
This competitor in the 9th annual Moore County Driving Club Show has a distinct advantage over the drag racing set. When he wants the horse to go faster, he just gives it a flick with that whip, and it works every time. You can't do that with a Top Fuel dragster. We've seen 2 people try, and both have smoked the tires in the near lane. I'm Steve Evans, along with Paul Page and Big Daddy Don Garlitz, and we're going to go for a ride with Kenny Bernstein.
Sometimes it seems like you may want to climb out of that car and beat it with a whip, though. Kenny Bernstein, the onboard camera, he runs in the near lane, and Bernstein will be taking on Joe Amato.
And Don Garlitz, do you think the same is true of Bernstein's problems trying to make this Top Fuel car dominant as his funny cars were? That man has certainly frustrated Dale Armstrong.
It would certainly appear to me that the problem is identical. Both of them have had to go to a hydraulic pneumatic clutch assembly, and both went to Top Fuel dragster. 2 major changes.
So Kenny Bernstein, the 4-time Winston champion in funny cars, he's struggling a bit in Top Fuel. He'll be the first to admit it, and so will his crew chief, Dale Armstrong. The 5-10, fairly encouraging. They still haven't got a 4-second run yet. This man has had plenty of them. Joe Amato, Old Forge, Pennsylvania, 2-time NHRA Winston World Champion. And Tim Richards, he's right there with Dale Armstrong as far as being a consummate crew chief, but he has 4 Top Fuel experience.
Now, this is a matchup not only of really great drivers, but really great crew chiefs. And it's strange to see a guy like Armstrong struggling trying to learn this new class on board with Kenny Bernstein.
You know, you're looking at 2 ultimate Top Fuel dragsters, the very best in the business, the finest of parts. This is the state of the art.
Absolutely, and we're going to go for a ride at 350 feet a second. You know the result, as does Kenny Bernstein. He saw Joe Amato drive around him. 5:02, 277 for Amato, 5:14, 272 for Kenny Bernstein. Let's go to Don Garlitz with the winning crew chief, Tim Richards.
Nice strong 5:02.
Yeah, we're plenty happy with that. I'll take it, especially against Bernstein. So Tim Richards, with the win for Joe Amato, goes down to pick his driver up as they prepare for the semifinal round. In the meantime, on the line and continuing with round number 1 of Top Fuel, it's Shirley Muldowney as she prepares for her confrontation with Darrell Gwynn.
Notice Darrell Gwynn has got on those new glasses that enhances the yellow, the amber light on the tree. That way he sees a brighter light when he lets out the clutch, and therefore hopefully has a better reaction time.
Shirley Muldowney with her burnout, boy, they better work because they're about $300 a pop if you want to set up them, aren't they?
Oh, they better work for that price.
And as has been pointed out, if they don't work and you think they work, they still work.
That's exactly right, Paul. It's a half of this racing from the starting line is psychological.
Well, Darrell Gwynn, with his burnout, he turned a 494 ET in qualifying. That was his 20th 4-second run. Let's go to the far end now. Here is Steve Evans.
Well, Joe Amato posts the second 5:02 of the round. Nice.
Well, see, we're just trying to get down the track, you know. Kenny's been tough, and he ran a 5:10 yesterday, so when they burned up and the sky blew up in front of us, put a little bit of oil on the track there, and got you a little nervous, you know.
With his 494, Darrell Gwynn has served notice that you're going to have to beat him sooner or later.
Yeah, well, thank God he's on the other side of the tree. We'll just take one round at a time. We're glad to win the first one. If we can get the next one down, then we'll worry about Darrell.
That's the way you got to approach this sport.
There's Jerry Gwynn, Darrell's dad, as they back the car up and prepare to do battle. Those glasses, if nothing else, are fairly spectacular when you see them on the starting line. Darrell Gwynn out of Miami, Florida, with 1 win thus far this year at the Gator Nationals. A spectacular victory is chiefed by Ken Benny. They qualified number 1 with a 494. And, of course, they will face Mount Clemens, Michigan, Shirley Muldowney. Muldowney is crew chief by her husband, Ron Goldberg. They're the 8th qualifier with a 512.
And, Don, I expected Shirley to run better than a 512. The car has been hard to drive. In fact, one qualifying run, it darted into the other lane.
She has had a hard time with that car. A lot of little funny thugs and gremlins have been plaguing that team this season.
All right, here we go. It's Gwynn away first, and Shirley, just like Lori Johns and Don Perdome, goes up in smoke, and Gwynn, a 504, 278 miles per hour, so not quite matching his qualifying effort. But part of the slowdown was probably getting a bit out of the groove and up towards the wall. He had to cover more distance, not going straight. Let's go to Don with Ken Vinny.
Well, 5:04, pretty good.
Pretty good. We was trying to run about an 02. We just wanted to barely get in the 5s and we was hoping that she was running as hard as she could and would maybe smoke the tires. So it worked out pretty good.
And she sure did that.
Thank you.
All right, Ken Vinny, they completed their run. So the stage is set for the semifinal run in Top Fuel here at the Invitational. Daryl Gwen will take on Jim Head, and Head with that terrific run has lane choice. And Don Perdome is ready to charge against Joe Amato. Amato will have his choice of lanes. But there's still a great deal more coming up. Take a look back in the staging lanes. There's pro stock, and then there's some more pro stock. When you talk about that division, there's a whole bunch of folks in this area of the country that just love to see them race. And that's what we'll have, pro stock, coming up next. Back at the Rock, Rockingham, North Carolina. I'm Paul Page with Steve Evans and Don Garlitz at the NHRA Winston Invitational. Don't forget, right after our coverage here, it will be NHRA Today, the weekly magazine show of the sport of championship drag racing, hosted by Steve Evans. But there is plenty of action here. Johnny Davis and Jim Head working on their Top Fuel dragster. Now they're going through an engine change. Apparently they took a look at that engine and found something they didn't like with the bearings, and so it's a whole new motor that goes in there. I hope it doesn't hurt the fine times that they've been showing. In the meantime, out on the line itself, it's pro stock, ready to run in the Winston Invitational.
And as you know, Paul, right across the street from Rockingham International Dragway is North Carolina Speedway, one of the top 1-mile Winston Cup circuits in the country. So you know there's stock car fans in this part of the world. I mean, they stay through all of the sportsman classes. They love anything with a great big full body on it. I guess, Don, they're just raised that way.
Well, it just goes way back into the days of Richard Petty and the likes of him, where they were tuned up for stock-bodied automobiles that were real fast, as they used to say.
Now, here's a new name for you in Championship Pro Stock. This is Jim Yates from Fairfax Station, Virginia, driving a 90 Pontiac Trans Am. If you like Richard Petty, there's the exact same colors from his home state. King, North Carolina's Ricky Smith in a 90.5 Trans Am. And there is a little bit of body difference between the two.
Very subtle, though.
Oh, I'll say you need a magnifying glass to find it. Ricky Smith, there's few better off the starting line than he. Jim Yates, we don't know what to expect of him. We haven't seen him that often in competition. Oh, and Jim Yates crawled through the beam before the tree was activated. He red light, but he's got good company. Bob Glidden, the 10-time Winston champion, did the same thing earlier in the day in round number 1. Red lighted because the car just wasn't staged quite properly.
Jim Yates had a parachute rip loose when he deployed it there, but it won't be a problem. This is a long, long, long drag strip. Plenty of room to slow down.
You see that? He didn't mean to leave the starting line, Don Garlitz. It crept. Either the line lock, something failed on him.
Yeah, it was way too early. It wasn't like he was trying to cut the lights short or anything. He just had some sort of a mechanical failure in the car.
Well, there is Larry Morgan back at the starting line. He's ready to face Morris Johnson Jr., but first, let's go to Steve.
Ricky Smith, you may know this racetrack better than any other pro stock driver. It's in your neck of the woods.
Well, it gets a little bad this time of day down here, Steve, but the track was really pretty good that time. I got the clutch a little too hot, I think, but made a pretty decent run.
Yeah, 734, your competition fouled out.
Yeah, well, maybe some of them guys is guessing on me now.
Well, that means you got a big reputation.
Hey, I'll take it any way I can get it right now.
You may be right, too, the way he's been running.
Now, Ricky Smith advances. Remember, in pro stock, you really have to know how to read that tree, because if you don't leave right on the money, you're lost already.
Well, here's a man who knows how the game is played. The big man, Morris Johnson Jr. from Richmond, Virginia. He's in a Pontiac, but he's up against an Oldsmobile, and that is the U.S. Nationals champion from last season, Larry Morgan, Newark, Ohio. The Bob Pinella entry, Pinella out of California, so you've got a California-Ohio combination in the left lane. The man from Virginia in the near lane. Morris Johnson Jr. sold his irrigation business at the end of last season, is now a full-time pro out here trying to make a living, and that's when win lights really get important.
All right, it's Morris Johnson on the near side, Morgan on the far side. Johnson got a little head start on Morgan as they come to the halfway point. It comes almost dead even, and Morgan pulls ahead right at the finish. Larry Morgan takes the win with a 7:31, 187 miles an hour.
Beautiful starting line advantage by Morris Johnson Jr. But the mid-range power of Larry Morgan's car really began to show up as the cars came off the pad. You could already see just a slight advantage to Morgan. But as they moved down through half track, the car continued to pull ahead of Morris Johnson Jr., and Morgan was clearly the winner by the time they reached the finish line.
So Larry Morgan's now with Steve.
Morgan the Pirate, as some have been calling him as of late. You had to run down Morris Johnson.
Well, I kind of figured that. I put a new clutch in, and I knew it was going to slip on the starting line, but I felt we had enough power to get around him.
Does the 731 make you reasonably happy?
That's not too bad. You know, I kind of figured it would slow down a little bit, but I'm pretty happy with that. I got to run Ricky. He ran a 34, so I feel pretty comfortable. I get the lane choice, so I'm pretty happy.
You got all the cards.
Thank you.
Well, action continues in this, the second round of Pro Stock. Back at the starting line, that's Mark Powack. He's the national record holder with a 722 ET set at Houston in the Super Nationals this year. And Bruce Allen, the Rare Morrison car, he ran a 726 in round number 1 and beat Joe Lapone. Will take on Mark Powack, who qualified fourth.
Powack found out at that Houston Super Nationals how brutal this board can be. He set the world record at 722 and got chopped off at the knees in round number 1 from hero to zero in about a day. So Powack in the near lane, the yellow car, that is a beautiful Chevrolet Beretta with Bruce Allen. As they so carefully stage, they leave right together. No advantage for either driver. It's a drag race. David Rear looking on, one of the car owners, and they get the win light. Bruce Allen wins at 7:32 to Mark Powack 7:34, 188 miles per hour for the yellow Chevrolet.
Now take a look at the yellow car. They move off the line fairly even. They really have a good race going for the first part. And then, Don Garlitz, it seemed that Bruce Allen was just able to finally overpower, catching him right at the end.
Yeah, he overpowered him, but not very much. This is two very good drivers and two very good, equally matched cars.
Back at the starting line, there's Jerry Ekman's bright yellow Pontiac. He's ready to take on Warren Johnson. But let's go to the far end. Steve is with Bruce Allen.
Tell me about the drive down the racetrack. Can you drive it straight? Does the track work for you or against you?
Well, I think the lanes are a little bit different here. The left lane for us is a little bit better. I have a little bit better luck staying straight, going down the middle of the groove there in the left lane.
Good job.
Thank you.
Good job, Mark. Bruce Allen, with 4 wins last year, looking for his first of 1990 in the new decade. There is Warren Johnson. Beautiful blue Oldsmobile ready to race.
Warren Johnson has just built a brand new 28,000 square foot shop just to maintain one Pro Stock car. Jerry Ekman, the Bill Orndorff-owned car from Ventura, California, has a check for $10,000 neatly tucked away in his wallet for qualifying number 1. But earlier in the day, this was Jerry Ekman, right-hand side of your screen, when he recorded. Well, I'll save that for you. Watch that yellow car, because it got everybody's attention. Clocking a 7.23, the second quickest Pro Stock time in history. Jerry down at the other end kind of took it in stride, though. You know, the first round of Pro Stock, Bruce Allen 726. Well, that amazed us. You just flat blew us away with a 723, the second quickest time ever.
Oh, wow, that excites me, Steve. I mean, 720, that's the quickest I've ever run. It's not that I didn't think the car was capable, because we've been working on this thing, and it's been flying, and I'm excited about that 723.
Now, this was a motor that you broke on the dyno. We're unable to run at some of the other tracks, and boy, you wish you'd have had it all year long.
Yeah, that's true, Steve. I wish I'd have had this one at Houston, because I think with this one, we could have set the national record.
Down in the teens, maybe?
Maybe so. We'll see. Thanks a lot.
So that set the stage for this confrontation. Now watch the yellow car on the left side as he runs against Johnson on the near side. And it's Ekman. Not quite as quick as a 723, but still strong enough to win with a 728, 188 miles an hour.
Now, that race was closer than the elapsed times might indicate, because Warren Johnson, Don Garlitz, had a terrific start. He was out on Jerry Ekman.
Now, generally in Pro Stock races, Steve, that'd be enough to win, but Ekman has been so strong today, he just drove around WJ.
Oh, absolutely. Ekman not taking any chances. He knows that he's the car to beat, and he doesn't want to beat himself, and that happens so often in this game. So, in the semifinals of Pro Stock, it will be Bruce Allen against Jerry Ekman. Ekman, no question, with lane choice there. He's the quicker of the two. Larry Morgan's Olds up against Ricky Smith's Pontiac, and Morgan has the lane choice. Those are the guys to beat right now, Ekman and Morgan, especially considering that they both have the lane choice. Well, back in the pit area, getting ready for the semifinals, the crew and the driver of the Joe Amato car. That's Joe on the right. They're trying to figure out what to do to take on Don the Snake Prudhomme.
You know, not far away from the noise and excitement of the Winston Invitational, in the North Carolina countryside, they're holding the 9th annual Moore County Driving Club Show. And this is Jane Firestone and Bambi, the winners in the single pony working competition over at the show. We're looking for some winners here at Rockingham in the Invitational, a very, very special event.
If you're unfamiliar with Nitro Funny Cars, those watching at home, well, you've got a real treat because nothing pounds the ground or smokes the tires quite like them. The same engines as you saw on the top of the old dragsters, only in front of the driver at the back of the automobile, where he has a completely different sensation. In the near lane is Mark Oswald, the former Winston World Champion. That's the bright red and white Ford Probe. The Candies and Hughes team, Oswald and the rest of the guys all based out of Houma, Louisiana, down there on the bayous. The crew chief, as he has been for this team for near 30 years, is Leonard Hughes, and they qualified very well at a 5:35. They're up against Jim White, Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Roland Leon Hawaiian car. And this machine has been a tremendous threat the last 2 or 3 races, thanks to Roland Leon and also a man named Wes Cerny, a blast from the past. The old Cerny and Moody Top Fuel team is now helping out on the car in the far lane, and it's made a difference, Don.
Oh, Roland Leon has run better in the last several events than I've seen out of that car in years.
Oh, absolutely, and they're not taking the conservative approach. That used to be the way they ran that car, to try to save a little money so you could eat a little better. Right now, what they want to see are wind lights, not T-bone steaks. Mark Oswald near lane, White in the far lane. Good reaction time. They're both fighting traction. And Oswald wins that battle. Ooh, 548, 272 miles per hour, smoking the tires. That is one impressive number. Don is with Leonard Hughes.
Well, 548 with all that smoke ain't all that bad.
Not that good. We got to dry it up sometime during this race. I don't know. We've been having trouble the last 3 or 4 races, about 600, 700, 800 foot smoking the tires. And I don't know what we really haven't followed. I don't know what to do with it right now.
Best to you.
Thank you.
So Leonard Hughes is scratching his head, but at the same time, that lane has been a problem throughout the day. We continue with the first round of Funny Car here at the Invitational. Bruce Larson is ready to take on Scott Coletta. Now, Larson will have lane choice as a result of his time in qualifying. Now, let's go to the far end.
Mark, tell me, what did you have to do inside this race car to still salvage a 548?
I had to let off the throttle a couple times. It got loose out there in the middle, but fortunately it went far enough where I could do something with it, and he was smoking the tires too, so.
When you let off the throttle, is it something you ease back or you just pull your foot off it?
Yeah, we've got a new clutch system in there now that's it's more conducive to pedaling it. Before, once you smoke the tires, your history. Well, now you actually, when you pedal the throttle, you can also stop the clutch from applying at the same time, and it's worked better.
Indeed. See you next round.
Thank you.
Well, Don Garlitz, what do you think they're doing there?
Well, it looks like they've got some sort of a trick device that's probably highly secretive to keep that clutch from fully applying like it was doing last year with the electronics.
Absolutely. The electronics just fired it off, and it went through its sequence no matter what you did with the pedal. Body is up on the Bruce Larson car. That should not be a big deal. They like to make an adjustment on the magneto, actually hook up the second mag. And against Bruce Larson, it will be Scott Coletta. And serving as his crew chief is his father, Connie, who won the top fuel division last year here at the inaugural Winston Invitational. But here in Funny Car today, Bruce Larson has got to figure as a contender. The number 2 qualifier at 5.32 seconds. And that made his crew chief, Maynard Yinks, pretty happy because, like everybody else, they have struggled with these new clutches, trying to do something that they couldn't do with the electronic devices.
Ready to go, it will be Larson on the far side, Coletta on the near side, as they both come off the line together, but instantly smoke comes from the back of Coletta's car. Larson almost loses the back end as well, but recovers and goes on to take the win with a 5:40.269 to a losing 5:86. Let's go to Don at the starting line.
5:40 and smoking the tire.
Well, there's a lot of good air out here this morning, and it's a new clutch system for us. We just put it in for this race, and we don't have a grip on it yet, but it shows a lot of promise. So
you get the feeling Maynard Yink's mind maybe is somewhere else, like inside the bell housing of that funny car, trying to figure out what to do for the semifinals. And back in the Darrell Gwynn pit area, they're getting his top fuel dragster ready for the semifinals. And Darrell himself checking the rod bearings with a micrometer, making absolutely sure the clearances are right.
We're back at Rockingham at the NHRA Winston Invitational. You think you'd like to be here at some drag race that you can't make it? You still want to know what's going on right up to the minute? Well, we've got a special deal for you. Dial 1-900-468-NHRA. Get up-to-the-minute reports.
There's a new young driver on the funny car scene, Richard Hartman, at the wheel of the Nick Bonnet-Font car in the near lane. R.C. Sherman, the veteran who drove it for so many seasons, has business commitments now that prevent him from going to every race, so a fine new shoe. And here is John Ford, the #1 qualifier at 5:27. And you remember Austin Coyle, the crew chief on that car, went kind of out on a limb with Paul earlier and said, I'm pretty sure we can win this thing.
You remember, too, his prediction, though, that the guy that figures how to get the clutches hooked up here is going to end up being the winner. John Force, one of the most personable men in drag racing out of Lorville, California. Austin Coyle, who uses a computer, his brain, and a whole lot of savvy to get that car going. They face Richard Hartman out of Laverne, California. That's Nick Bonnefont's new driver. They qualified 8th with a 5:51. They have something no one else has.
Top fuel dragsters all use very precise rack and pinion steering, and have since the early 70s when the engine was put behind the driver. Funny cars, well, like this one right over here, still use conventional steering, the type that has been on cars since there have been cars. It is a pitman arm down, a drag link to a front spindle, and then a tie rod to the opposite wheel. One car owner, Nick Bonnet-Font, decided as quick as these cars are going now that his driver, Richard Hartman, needed more precise control. He has gone to the trouble of putting rack and pinion steering on a funny car. And look how complicated it is. A knuckle here, down to the side of the car, another knuckle, more knuckles as we travel our way up to the rack and pinion steering box. Now, Richard has to be very careful to not oversteer this car. He can't just idly move the steering wheel around like maybe you could on another funny car. But when he needs the control, he's got it instantly.
Don Garlitz, doesn't that seem a little too complicated, and can't you steer it too quickly?
It would certainly seem like that to me, Paul. Looking at all that linkage down through the motor, plus I get the distinct feeling that there's a rod running right by the side of that engine that I wouldn't like.
So, the car with the rack and pinion steering, that's Hartman in the near lane. John Force over on the far side as they both concentrate on the light. We'll ride with John Force. The quarter mile lies just ahead.
Just about 3.5 Gs off the starting line for John. Oh! And the younger Richard Hartman is into the wall. But for a second there, Don Garlitz, I thought he was on his head.
Sure was a close one, Steve. I don't know how he ever recovered from that thing. I guess we can thank the wall for it, really.
Well, I'd say he grabbed the wall, but you really can't see much damage from this angle. The wing looks in pretty good shape. No marks on the back end of the car. Let's take a look at it again, Don.
Richard Hartman puts a full 1/10 of a second into the bank with that starting line advantage. But then the wheels start to spin in that marginal near lane, and the car turns immediately left. But the rack and pinion steering seems to be working as Hartman almost saved the car. But the wheels were spinning so hard it just continued to go out of control, eventually kissing the wall with the back section of the car. Not a tremendous amount of damage, but enough that we'll have to have a lot of work done to the car.
Still, it could have been a whole lot worse as Richard Hartman drives his way out of trouble. Let's go to the far end and Steve.
Well, Richard, if there was ever a time a driver needed precise steering, this was it.
Yeah, that steering proved. It was a hard hit. It just, I don't know what happened. It was on a nice run. It shook. I grabbed the brake, made a hard left or right. I don't know. It happened so fast, I don't know which way it went, to be honest with you.
Well, you did a great job.
Thanks, Steve.
At the starting line, the far lane, there's Ed McCullough. His burnout as we continue in round 2 of Funny Car here at the Winston Invitational. And there is Casey Spurlock, out of the famous racing family, ready to take on McCullough. Let's go back to the far end.
John, you had to be leery when you went to the starting line of that racetrack.
Well, we saw what was happening, and Coyle got out the deal. He backed the mags off. It was obvious. Car slowed down quite a bit, right?
Exactly, in the 534.
Well, you know, you're racing for a lot of money here, and you just can't take a chance to try to impress these guys that you can run another 20 when a racetrack might be a 30 racetrack. So we did what we had to do, and we won a race, and that gives us a tune-up for next round.
That's good thinking. Make the change right in the staging line.
Well, I leave that to Austin. I'm too nervous myself, and he made the right decision, and I just hope the kid got into the wall. I hope he's okay.
He's just fine. See you in the semi.
Okay.
That's very interesting. Backing off the mags, one of the few things that the crew can now do in the staging lanes to change the initial performance of the cars.
Well, there's a number of ways to approach that, but given a short period of time, that is the obvious option, and it worked for Austin Coyle and John Force. Casey Spurlock won the very first professional national race he ever ran at the Winter Nationals. Ron Swearingen, the crew chief on the car, they qualified 5th with a 535. And of course, it was Ed McCullough of Hemet, California that he faced, and in fact came up on the losing end of that first ever win. Bernie Federley is the crew chief on this car. They qualified number 4 with a 534.
The Spurlock team have added a new full-time crewman, Tom Anderson, who was a driver in the mid-70s until the early 80s. He does nothing but run the clutch, and he's very good. McCullough, one of the oldest drivers still active in funny car racing, and Spurlock, the new kid on the block, already with 1 victory. It is McCullough away first. Lots of clutch dust out of Spurlock coming. Here he comes. Oh, my. 528 for the winner, McCullough. 529 for the loser, Spurlock. Don has colored Bernie Federley.
528, strong.
Yeah, we were real impressed with that, but we knew we had to press hard. Those guys are good over there, and they got down that side pretty good yesterday, and we wanted to try and maintain lane choice going in next round, so we knew we had to, what we had to do. I just glad it worked.
Thank you. Well, Paul, let's have another look at this one. Spurlock really did master this near lane like no one else has.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can be impressed with a 528 run by McCullough, but I think you also have to pay very close attention to Spurlock's 529 in that questionable near lane.
Yeah, but Spurlock gave up a lot of starting line advantage by loosening that clutch so it wouldn't spin the tires, and it caused him to get out late.
All right, the stage now set for the semifinals in funny car. McCullough will face John Force, and he'll have lane choice. And Mark Oswald will take on Bruce Larson. Larson will have his choice of lanes. Let's go to the far end now, and Steve.
John Force is not the only funny car in the 520s. We really weren't expecting a number like that, but you gave it to us.
Well, you know, the racetrack out here has been ahead of us all weekend. It's a better racetrack than we expected, and you know, we knew that KC was, you know, he had a great run going yesterday, and he lost a blower belt. We knew they were going to run awful good, so we had to stand on it, and fortunate enough to get by him.
It did hook.
Well, it's a good race. It's not over yet. Lane choice, I think, is pretty important here.
You want to keep that left side if you can.
You bet.
Thanks.
Yeah, but the right side may be getting better. So Ed the Ace scores the victory. At the starting line, well, they're getting ready for the semifinals in Top Fuel as Don Prudhomme prepares to take on Joe Amato. We'll have that match when we come back.
So, you've often wondered whatever happened to Mr. Ed. We found him alive and well, maybe packing a few extra pounds here in the Sand Hills region of North Carolina. I'm Steve Evans, along with Paul Page and Don Garlitz for the Winston Invitational Top Fuel semifinals coming up.
Count on Steve Evans to come up with one like that. Rockingham, North Carolina. We're ready for Joe Amato to take on Don Prudhomme. You saw something on Joe's car.
Looks to me like Joe's sporting them $300 specs.
Yeah, but I got bad news for Joe. So is Don Prudhomme. So that cancels any advantage the glasses may have. It's like you get a new blower, I'll get the same thing.
Yeah, the question is, maybe the snake just borrowed his pair and didn't have the $300.
That's right, he might have rented them from somebody. But he's got problems. The snake is not keeping pace with Joe Amato. Tim Richards relieved because he saw that car start to smoke the tires. And it runs a 501 at 279. Let's go to Don.
5:01 with that smoke out there.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good considering to smoke the tires down there in the middle. I'm happy to beat Snake and Bernstein while they're still trying to figure this thing out. I know it's not going to last forever.
Can't be a lot more than that out there, can there?
No, I don't think so. I think that's about it. Thanks.
So Tim Richards has done some pretty good figuring on the lanes, and Amato takes the win in semifinal round, top fuel.
Boy, you can see that Ken Vinny was certainly concerned with that 5:01 by Amato. Very impressive time. And he knows that Jim Head has that lane that just produced that 5:01, and he's got the marginal near lane.
All right, let's go down to the far end. Steve Evans is with Joe Amato.
Best of the day, Jose. 5:01.
Well, steady, Steve. We're just 5:01, huh? Let's hope that's lane choice, because that could mean a lot here.
Oh, absolutely. The left lane seems to be where it is.
Well, you know, the better cars end up in the left lane. That means a lot. Yeah. You know, the cars that are, you know, so that makes the lane look good.
Then Spurlock in the funny car goes 29 in the supposed bad lane. So
yes, I mean, so it's, you know, just how your combination is to the lane, and hopefully if nobody makes a big oil down, both lanes will probably be pretty good.
Your equipment extremely reliable today.
Yeah, well, we had some trouble with the clutch that time. We had to put a fresh clutch in, and that just goes show you what the crew can do to make things repeat. A whole brand new clutch in the car that run.
See you in the final.
Thank you.
So Joe Amato points out that it is a battle to try to get into the best lane here at Rockingham. Back at the starting line, Darrell Gwynn is ready to take on Jim Head. Remember, they changed the motor in Head's machine.
That's right, Paul, but he thinks it's a better engine. He said it's certainly fresher. The one he took out was really tired. In fact, they've been racing it since last August, if you can believe that. Darrell Gwynn had to have loved that 529 on Spurlock's losing effort because it told him, Don Garlits, you can get down that piece of macadam closest to our camera.
And that's very important. As I said earlier, psychologically, you've got to feel good when you go to that starting line, Stephen. I feel like Gwynn has that feeling now. The lane is okay.
He can put that out of his mind. Remember, an untried power plant here with a lot of raw fuel coming out of it. Maybe not all that good, Don.
Yeah, it makes for a lot of bottom-end horsepower.
And away they are together until Head smokes the tires. I think Vic just hit it. Too much bottom-end power. And there's a relieved crew. However, we got some more news they won't want to hear. Their 5:02 has given lane choice in the final round to Joe Amato. Let's go to Don Garlits with Ken Vinny.
5:02, coming right around.
We wanted to run 5 flat to 5:02. We figured we could beat him, and that's what we did.
And the driver did a good job.
Well, they did what they wanted to do. They ran within the range they were looking for, but it wasn't quick enough to take on the 5:01 of Joe Amato. So in the top fuel final, it will be Amato against Gwynn, but Amato will have that critical choice of lanes. In the meantime, back in the pit area, they work on Larson's car. He is ready to face Mark Oswald in the funny car semifinal. Let's go to the far end, Steve Evans.
I'm not sure we have appreciated until now how good this car, crew, and driver are. You get in a lane you didn't like, and you run 5:02 in it.
Well, there again, we're taking it one race at a time, and consequently, we don't have lane choice against Amato, but hopefully we can pull this one off for all the Winston folks.
Did you change anything in the car because you were in that lane?
No, we didn't. We actually thought that it shook the first round because of something else that happened, so we just took a chance and run the right lane.
You've lost lane choice, though.
You bet.
Bother you?
No, not too much.
Let's get off the racetrack.
You bet.
Yeah, well, both of you get off the racetrack because we've got funny cars semifinal coming up next.
They're racing on the track and in the pits here at the Winston Invitational. 124 scale funny cars. In the near lane, you. In the far lane is your friend. Had you been here today? Boy, is that neat. Trick little Christmas tree, wind lights, even a real return road, all in the Winston Pavilion. And at the far end of this tent, well, some little link trainers with real Christmas trees where you put the pedal down and practice your reaction time. And these are just two of the many things there are to do in the pits at any major NHRA drag race. I found out about this because it's new for this year. When I got my National Dragster, I get it 48 weeks a year because I am, like 70,000 other people, a member of the National Hot Rod Association. And you can join, too, for $42 a year by calling this number. You'll get Dragster and a rule book and your membership pin and all of the other things. And if you call right now, they will throw in free a copy of Diamond P's newest home video, Drag Racing '89. So, give them a call.
And speaking of some of the closest NHRA drag racing there is, it's in pro stock. And they came here with a ton of pro stockers into this field. 16 of them started. We're in the semifinal round. Here is Larry Morgan, and they changed the clutch on this car before they brought it up to the line.
You know, Don Garlitz, you didn't used to hear pro stock drivers talking about the clutch. It was always just the engine. They're now running, I guess, that tricky kind of a multi-stage unit.
Plus, they have all kind of different disc steam. It requires a lot of maintenance, so most of these cars are taking the clutches out between rounds, just like the fuel cars.
All right, in the near lane is Ricky Smith and the Pontiac. Smith had a tremendous hole shot. The Oldsmobile Larry Morgan is up to the task. That is big end horsepower. Larry Morgan, 729 to Ricky Smith, 738. Well, I'll tell you, Smith just about wasted him on the starting line now.
And take a look at Ricky Smith in the near lane. He got the jump on Larry Morgan, and at this point had the race. But it was up to Morgan and the horsepower in his car, and he had to certainly hope that that clutch was doing the job. As they came to the finish line, it was Morgan by just a very few feet.
You needed to pick up the pace a little bit, and you did, a 729.
I figured I'd pick up a little bit, Steve. I knew that breaking the new clutch in would, you know, I definitely knew it'd pick up. I hope Ekman or whoever the next guy is don't run as quick, because I do like that lane.
You know, you haven't used your parachute all day. Why?
Well, to be quite honest with you, we hate to pack the thing, and it's long here, and we got carbon fiber brakes, and it stops relatively easily here.
It's your choice.
Thank you.
Always got that parachute for a final pull in case things go wrong. Morgan takes a look back up to the starting line to try and determine who he's going to face. There's Bruce Allen in that bright yellow Chevrolet. Another yellow car sits over on the other side, and it belongs to Jerry Ekman.
And Morgan has got plenty to worry about. Let's remember, both of these drivers have run quick enough today to take the lane choice away from him. They have to run quicker than a 729, or the winner does.
And you don't usually hear the pro stocks worrying about lane choice so much, but here they do, Steve.
Absolutely. It seems to be critical to their particular clutch combination. Ekman in the far lane. That's Allen on the left-hand side of your screen. No games being played. They're just staging very cautiously. And it's a magnificent start by both drivers. They must both have the trick glasses. What a race. Oh, it is Jerry Ekman. At 726, he takes the lane choice away from Larry Morgan. What Morgan feared, the speed, a whopping 188 miles per hour. Boy, Ekman, when the big money's up, he is a player for it.
Bruce Allen takes a slight starting line advantage. Pretty even start all around, but Ekman makes a lot of power through the middle of the course, and that's where he got the advantage. He doesn't run real high mile per hour, and he doesn't leave the line good. It's in the middle where you got to outrun Jerry Ekman, and that's where he got Allen this time.
So a close battle continues in pro stock here at the Invitational. The final round will see Jerry Ekman take on Larry Morgan, and Ekman will have his choice of lanes. Now, as Jerry Ekman climbs out of the car, let's go to the far end. Here's Steve.
This is one of those days, Jerry, when you have such faith in your machine that you can cut a conservative light. You don't have to try to gamble or cut it too thin.
Well, it's the easy way to lose with a red light, and I can't afford that now running as well as I have. I know the guy's going to be taking a little bit of a shot at me. I didn't think Bruce would. He doesn't red light, but I knew he was going to cut a good light. He always does, so I was just hoping we'd have another good classic race, and looks like that's what happened.
726.
26, that's not bad. It's not bad for this weather.
Well, it's always a good race when the yellow cars get together. Bruce Allen yells, "Not bad. What do you want?"
We had a good race. He got me on the tree.
Not bad. Good enough to give him lane choice in the final round against Morgan. Well, they're getting ready for the Top Fuel final back in Darrell Gwynn's pit area. They have the job of facing Joe Amato. And we will have the semifinals in Funny Car next.
We're back at Rockingham International Dragway in North Carolina, and we have got the two quickest nitro funny cars of this entire Winston Invitational head-to-head. John Force, the body going down, no problem. Just like Bruce Larson earlier, they do the burnout with one magneto, flip the body and hook up two. And his competition, if you've been paying attention, would have to be Ed McCullough. He has run 5:28. Force has run 5:27. Force was in qualifying, though, Don Garlitz.
And that's right, because McCullough ran his the round before, and that's what really counts. They always say in drag racing, you're no better than your last run. Well, McCullough's last run was a 5:28, so watch out.
And Force, of course, is in that near lane that has been questionable throughout the day. As Force, look at McCullough. He bounces his way as he lights those tires. And Force in the near lane takes the win with a 5:44.265. The traction going away and bouncing McCullough in the air. Pretty good move to get it stopped. Austin Coyle ought to be happy with that one.
Well, that was the tough one you put out that time, Austin.
Boy, I'll say so. Looks like there's a problem down there from all the smoke. I kind of wonder what we got to fix, but we'll get it, whatever it takes.
Austin Coyle a bit worried about that blue smoke that we saw there, Don.
Well, you can tell by this race that McCullough was set on pure kill. He had John Force, and he had him, well, I'm telling you, he didn't have a chance. But look at that front end on that car. It comes up. It looked like he was going to join the 360 club had it been for them wheelie bars on the back of it. But he looked over in that other lane, and he saw he was still ahead of Force, and he just kept trying to get after it. He kept trying to save that run. He knew he could win if he could just get down that lane, but finally it got completely out of control, and he had to give up.
You know, oftentimes the driver doesn't know what kind of a drag race he was in until he sees a replay on television, but McCullough did a big wheel stand alongside you.
I tell you, he's crafty, that old man. He got me up there on the start line. I couldn't get him to stage. And Coyle, he's looking, don't play the game, don't play the game, go on in. And I sat on the thing, and finally I went in, and then no tree, it just sat and it sat. And I was running out of brain, I'm telling you. And I know I was late leaving on him because he was out, and thank God he got in trouble.
The most important thing is you and I are talking right now. That's what matters.
That's it. How do we run?
5:44.
5:44. Well, we got a problem, and she's oiled, but that's what he gets paid for. But there's a big person. We're going after him.
Well, they have several problems. One of them may be that 5:44, because if Oswald or Larson can pull off a better run, then of course they will have lane choice, and I'm sure that they will choose the far lane that has been, in fact, so successful.
And I'm sure both of them, like all three of us, still have their mouth open over the job McCullough did driving that car.
And speaking of that far lane, that's just exactly what happened. That lane is producing such good traction, that's what put the car up in the air. It smoked the tires after it hit the wheelie bars.
Had that been a dragster without wheelie bars, we might have seen a repeat of the Eddie Hill incident last year at Pomona, where it literally did blow over backwards. I think you're right, John. The wheelie bars, as we see right there on Bruce Larson's car, probably saved that from happening.
All right, Bruce Larson, big number 1, indicating the Winston World Champion in funny car, sits in the far lane. He had lane choice over Mark Oswald here on the near side. They come off the line easy. Both tires go to smoke. For a second, it looked like Larson was totally out, and in fact, he is, as Mark Oswald takes the win, again the near lane with a 5:62.267. Larson with a losing 5:86.
Well, it certainly looks to me like that Oswald has got some sort of a trick, as he said, on that throttle and that clutch. Look at the car smoke. He backs it down and is still able to recover and continue on without getting that real white billowy smoke. The car is still accelerating, and the tires are spinning. Shades of the 60s.
Both of them trying to drive away from trouble. So the funny car final will see Mark Oswald against John Force. Steve?
Well, Mark, again, maybe this clutch combination you talked about earlier, more conducive to pedaling, paid off.
Yeah, it does. Before, you know, I would have never been able to get away with it. It just blow the tires off so bad you couldn't even get down the racetrack. But,
or blow the engine up.
Yeah, but by the same token, the changes we're making aren't really responding. We made a big change down track to soften that part up. We actually thought it'd be a little mushy, and it didn't even seem to slow it down.
And you've lost lane choice, which here could be a factor.
Yeah, the track has really held up good this weekend, though. We're happy with that.
It's just you overpowering it?
Yeah, it looks that way. The air is awful good here. It's almost hard to back the engine off.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
On a day like this, you could smoke the tires on fly paper.
Well, Mark Oswald with some trick that definitely is paying off for them. Well, we're set to go in the final rounds in all pro categories now at the Invitational. And Jerry Ekman is working on his pro stock car, putting on the final touches, getting ready to face Larry Morgan. We're back racetrack at Rockingham, North Carolina, the NHRA Winston Invitational. Ed McCullough had a whole string of wheel stands, and now he's in the pits with Steve Evans.
Well, Ed, that was one bucking horse a guy didn't want to ride to the buzzer.
Well, that was, you know, it was a bad deal. We knew that Force was going to run well. He had run well over in the other lane yesterday. The racetrack was outstanding. The car carried the front end pretty good the round before, and we compensated for it, but then we gave it a little bit more clutch to try to outrun Force, and, you know, what can I say? It got away from us a little.
What do you see out the window at the time you say, this is it, I'm out of here?
Well, you guy, guardrail. Really, you're looking over the front of the car. You know, the first time it come up, I thought I could get out of it. I come out of it pretty easy, and it set down. The second time I got back after it, it came up higher, and at that point it gets on the wheelie bar, you know, hard, and then the wheelie bar will steer the car, so you don't know which direction you're going in, so then you just got to get out of it and stay out of it.
Good job.
Thank you.
Not just a good job, pretty courageous piece of driving by Ed McCullough. In Joe Amato's pit, they make preparations for his final round encounter with Darrell Gwynn. Earlier, Steve Evans took a look at one of the sportsman entries here at Rockingham.
For season after season, the alcohol dragster category was considered the exclusive domain of the legendary Hemi racing engine. Even though NHRA offered alternatives, you could have a lighter car if you ran unblown on nitro, a lighter car if you ran a true wedge, or a canted wedge engine like we're seeing in this machine of Blaine Johnson. It was Blaine Johnson who really first came along and said, I can work in this class if I build a 470-inch Oldsmobile Pro Stock type motor, only with some billet heads, a special induction system, and boy has it worked. Blaine has won 6 national events and untold divisional titles. Now, sooner or later, they're holding their breath. This doesn't happen. NHRA may come along and say, wait a minute, to keep parity in this class, we're going to add some weight to you, Blaine. They haven't done it yet, but it may be inevitable. Paul will tell us how Blaine Johnson fared here at the Winston Invitational and the rest of the sportsman results.
Well, Steve, it was Blaine Johnson in the far lane, Don Blackshear here on the near side in the top alcohol dragster final round. And Johnson just simply drove away from Blackshear. If they were looking at the weight before, they're going to be staring hard at it now. So Johnson takes the win in top alcohol dragster. In top alcohol funny car, Bob Newberry adds to his list of wins. In comp, Larry Kopp takes the victory. In super stock, it was Bob Reed. And some great racing in stock. The win goes to Curtis Smith. The victory in Super Comp to Jay Hellman. And in Super Gas, Bob Phillips picked up the win. Super Street, well, that belonged to Ricky Hall. Those are the sportsman winners at the Winston Invitational at Rockingham.
And our congratulations to all of them. And Pro Stock is on the starting line. The yellow Pontiac of Jerry Ekman, the #1 qualifier. Remember, he already has won $10,000. He can pick up, well, close to $20,000 more if he can get by this man. The slick shifting Larry Morgan in the Oldsmobile.
The car has lost fire. He's had to restart it. This is the second time that has happened. There's something given up in the clutch. It does not want to move forward properly. He's got a big problem on his hands, Steve.
Well, he's going to try to stage the car anyway because Jerry Ekman probably is not aware of the problem. We'll see if Larry Morgan indeed can leave the line. Buster Couch waves him in. And he foul starts. Indeed, there's something mechanically wrong with the Oldsmobile of Larry Morgan. Fist in the air, the crew for Jerry Ekman. He has won a whole lot of money. His biggest professional payday ever with a nice 729.
Well, it's too bad, too, because it looked like it might have been a very, very good race. Ekman came out with a relatively slow reaction time against Morgan, but that big red light tells the story in pro stock, as in all pro categories. The race was over before it started. Let's go to the far end now. Steve Evans is with the winner in pro stock, Jerry Ekman. Steve?
Harder and harder to climb out of.
You shouldn't be in any pain at all, Jerry Ekman. You have dominated this race. You have owned it since the first round of qualifying.
That's great, Steve. And first, I got to thank my sponsors, Pennzoil and Pontiac. You know that. And I got to thank my crew chief, Bill Orndorff. What a guy, huh? Can he call the shots?
And an engine builder who you kept calling between rounds.
Dale Ike. We owe it all to him. That's everything. That's everything. And we're so thrilled to be here. I got to thank Winston for giving us the opportunity to win this race, put this race on, and we got it.
Congratulations.
Thanks so much, Steve. I got to say hi to my mom.
And Mommy's got a whole bunch of money. You may want to call him tonight and tap him for some. Jerry Ekman takes the win. We're ready for the final round in Funny Car and Top Fuel as John Force's car begins to report out of the staging lanes to the lines. We'll be right back.
Only 4 cars remain here at Rockingham International Dragway in North Carolina, the Winston Invitational, the finalists in Funny Car and the finalists in Top Fuel. The Funny Cars are already lit and ready. It's going to be John Force, who qualified #1 up against Mark Oswald. Already we have seen the #1 qualifier in Pro Stock go to the winner's circle. Can Force do likewise?
Well, Force certainly has the lane that everybody has wanted. The far lane has been the key factor throughout the day. Mark Oswald in the Candies and Hughes car, well, definitely it is an uphill battle for him. He's been a little bit slower than Force and is on the bad side. But there is a problem that has to be considered on the Force machine. You will remember that Austin Coyle was watching very carefully as that car went down the lanes, and he saw some smoke, and he saw some action that he didn't like. Well, they've gone back to the pits, and they did a lot of work on this machine. And standing there keeping track of all the action was Steve Evans, and he talked with John Force.
John, a guy who has lived and raced as lean and mean as you have all your life, to leave here with close to $40,000, that's really something.
It's a lot of money, and it's exciting. We've been here a number of times in our career, and you're right. When Winston and NHRA put up this kind of purse, you just can't lose. But you know, we got the low ET money. That was $10,000. We're very excited about that. The rest is really gravy. What we're trying to do now is trying to do what Don Perdome did here last year. He won the race and ran low ET. I mean, he just really whipped up on these guys. And if we can do that, that's what we're really trying to accomplish.
You've changed engines for the finals to try to do that.
We pulled a 27 out of the hat yesterday to get low ET, and Austin was real pleased, but all day long we've been struggling. The car won't just come back. The harder he leaned on it, the more he hurt it. And he finally just said, this motor just doesn't work. I'm taking it out. And I said, Austin, give me a reason. He said, I never give you a reason. Motor don't give me a reason. I'm just putting another one in, and that's what he did.
Good luck at the final.
Thank you.
Yeah, sometimes the motor will talk to you, and sometimes it won't. Now, this rod is for $25,000 plus a wide assortment of contingency money. Remember, John Force already has $10,000 in the bank.
Mark Oswald in the near line would be the first to tell you he's a very fortunate driver here today. The kind of times he has run, well, probably shouldn't have put him here, but he just raced the right cars at the right time.
Yeah, he was just able to get down the lane each time. He always had smoke coming off the tires. He never has made a real good run, but he's always been there.
All right, a new engine for John Force, same power plant for Oswald. It is Force away first. Force has the advantage. Here comes Oswald. It is not enough. Oswald can't catch John Force, and they run identical. 5.43 second elapsed times. Let's go to John with Austin Coyle.
Oh, John is 40,000 richer, Austin.
Yeah, that's true, and like I get a pretty good percentage of that, it makes me happy. We worked hard to get this one here today, but we've got some things that are working real well for us this year. You're going to see a lot of us.
You've done a good job today.
Well, thank you, sir. Coming from you, that's especially a compliment well received.
Well deserved.
Thank you.
Well, you remember back at the start of the race, Austin Coyle said he thought he had it figured out. He certainly did with the help of his driver, John Force. Now we take a look at the run one more time, Don Garland.
Well, John Force certainly did his job on the starting line as he pulled this race out of the hat right to start with. And Oswald, they got the clutch figured out. Don't see any smoke coming off that car at all. It runs real good. In fact, it ran better than John Force. Just didn't lead properly. And as in drag racing, if you snooze, you lose.
So it's reasonable to say that both lanes are in pretty good shape for the final race of the day. There is Joe Amato preparing to take on Darrell Gwynn. Now, with both of those past runs we've seen, these lanes really seem to be about equal now, so this should make for one spectacular drag race, the final run here at Rockingham. Let's go to the far end again and Steve Evans.
Did you know you'd won?
I just can't be hyper no more, Steve. I don't know what's wrong with me.
Get happy, buddy. We did it.
John Force has finally been raced to his knees. I never thought I'd see it happen. Give him about 10 minutes, and he'll be back.
We can go home. 43. We can go home with a win.
Always thank my sponsors. Always thank Castrol and the way they put this program together. And Jolly Ranchers for 12 years of support. Austin Coyle, my friend, he knows that.
You won this one for us, bud.
He gets fired once a week. I threaten to quit once a week. But I tell you what, Winston and the kind of money they put up here, and NHRA, well, they've only kindled the fire because we got some dust, and we're going to get a whole lot tougher, and I mean that.
Austin and John Force with money in the bank could be a really dangerous combination.
Hey, Dirt!
Well, you've got to love it when John Forrest takes the win, and he certainly did here in the Invitational at Rockingham.
All right, Darrell Gwynn has got to be hoping right now, Paul and Don, that he can do what Jerry Ekman and John Forrest did, come from the pole position and win.
So Darrell Gwynn is ready. Now, one thing you can say about this car is it seems that no matter what the day and no matter what the racetrack, it goes down the track nice and smooth. Earlier, Steve Evans took a look at the possible reasons why.
The amazing consistency of Darrell Gwynn's top fuel dragster is probably more a matter of clutch management than horsepower, what happens inside this bell housing. Now, in all street cars and most race cars, this controls the clutch. This goes to the pedal. And you've got slop in this linkage and flex in this arm, and the shaft that goes to the throwout bearing. Not with Darrell's pneumatic setup here. See the piston inside the bell housing? They release air. The piston releases the fingers on the pressure plate, which incidentally Darrell has declined to show us for security reasons. You've got no flex and a totally even release. So we no longer talk about stages of a clutch. It's just a progressive release of it, applying more and more horsepower to the rear wheels as the car accelerates down the racetrack. Very, very simple and very effective.
Well, I think he's got the best clutch system in the business, and it's certainly the most simple, and sometimes that's the keynote.
There's Stage, Amato to the far side, Gwynn the near side. Good hole shot by Amato. He smokes the tires a little bit coming off the line, but Amato takes the win. Amato with a 5:04.272. Joe Amato with the victory. Let's go to Don.
Looks to me like Joey gave him a driving lesson.
Yeah, I think he did that time. Our fuse was a little short on the other end. It's a good thing. I think Darrell was in a little bit of a wheel stand there in the middle of the track, and I think that was just enough to get us out in front of him.
Yeah, because it looked like a lot of fuel came out of the pipes on Joe's car.
Oh, definitely. We had a flashed on her. We've got some damage, but that one paid for it.
Good.
Thanks.
So Joe Amato with the victory here in the Invitational. Don Garlits, he got a nice hole shot.
Well, that Joe Amato was certainly not going to give Gwynn a chance at the starting line. He's afraid he was going to pull another one of those fours. Gwynn had the wheels up pretty good. May have had to backpedal that car just a little bit or touch the brake, and that could have hurt that ET, because if he could have run a 4, he could have won this race, because look how close it was.
And take a look at the first number on each line. That's the reaction time. Amato definitely needed it to take this victory. He's down at the far end now with Steve Evans.
Joe Amato, who is always so quick to give all the credit to the crew, to Tim Richards, when he takes that helmet off, Paul and Don, I hope he'll take a little credit for his driving. He ran 02, you ran 04, and you and I are talking.
Steve, I don't know who won. It was close, you know. You're going 280 mile an hour, and you're looking over there. It was a good win, you know. I knew I was going to be close on the lights, you know, because I knew the quote cars are running real good. And, you know, guy was looking for me Palm Sunday, and I guess he's looking over my shoulder.
Indeed, and a whole lot of money for Winston.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. You know, my wife, we went to the Winston banquet the other night, and my wife saw this beautiful Winston trophy.
Oh, the Steuben glass.
Glass. I mean, she's, I got one of them, you know. I'm getting emotional here. But she said we got to have one, and she's going to go in the hospital for a little surgery here this weekend, and so I told her today before the race that I dedicate the race to her and the trophy, so.
I'll come by the house someday and see where you put that.
It was a great one for Team Valvoline and Keystone Automotive. We've got about 360 customers here, and I can't think of any better way to end it.
The Winston Invitational champion.
Good race.
Excellent race. Excellent race. Excellent.
Well, it's been a beautiful day, and we've seen some magnificent racing in the NHRA Winston Invitational. I'm Paul Page for Don Garlits and Steve Evans. So long from Rockingham.
The executive producer for American Sports Cavalcade is Harvey M. Palish. Produced and directed by John B. Mullen. Promotional consideration provided for and a fee paid by this special offer from Diamond Fee.
For 7 seasons, Diamond P Sports' award-winning American Sports Cavalcade series on PNN has covered a wider variety of motorsports than any other, and with more cameras than you normally see. And it's because of the talented people who man these viewfinders that Diamond P has been able to produce a 90-minute home video entitled "And They Walked Away." Incredible crashes from stock car racing, motocross, IMSA and SEC road racing, NHRA drag racing, Eastern modifieds, even swamp buggies, and more. To get your copy of "And They Walked Away," send $24.95 plus $3.50 shipping and handling to the address on your screen. Or better yet, call 1-800-453-9300. Visa and MasterCard accepted, no CODs. Call now, 1-800-453-9300.
All right, where's the general? Hey, General! All right.
The American Sports Cavalcade is a presentation of Diamond P Sports.